Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. We're live again. This is Shirley. This is Shirley Osborne. I'm doing my day two of my 45 days live from the Women's Leadership Circle. If you heard me yesterday, you will remember that this is partly a dare, but it's a dare with a cause. And the cause is women's leadership. And the cause is also the other thing that's very dear to my life, the people of Montserrat. And I talked yesterday about how they're connected. You will see today that I have a notebook because I've been asking women to send me notes, tell me what they want to hear about, what they want to talk about, what they want to hear me talk about, what questions they would like to ask me or have me find answers to. And so I've been getting lots of stuff. You can't read my handwriting because it's, yeah. But I've been taking notes, and I'm going to begin today with a couple of things that people ask, but before I do that, I'm going to tell you a couple of things about that I did today, because it just seemed very important to me. When I think of women and women's leadership, I think of not just the women, and in fact, not even primarily the women who are in the offices and positions of power, not necessarily, and definitely not only the women who are the few women who are in the highest reaches of public office or in commerce and business or academia, or even as artists, or in any industry. I think most of all, first of all, and most deeply about the women, the multitude of women whose lives are just like ours, who live their lives in their families, in their communities, doing quote unquote normal everyday things. And it is really, really important to me that we think of these women, not just because there are so many, but because to my mind, these women are the engine. They are the women who really, really make the world go round. They're the people who make the world go round. If you think about all the industries that women are involved in, engaged in, there are some that are mostly women, because those are the ones that were in a sense relegated to women. But there are also the others, like farming and agriculture and the market. And if you think of market, you can't not think of the market women of Ghana, for example, and the influence that they have. But the influence that is not necessarily given the value, the recognition, because they are women. But anyway, that was a roundabout way of saying that for me, when I think of leadership, I think of women doing things every day, being leaders in their normal, everyday work lives, not just the ones making the big decisions and signing the documents, the intercontinental documents or whatever, but the women whose lives every day are about moving people along, lifting people up, making things work. Good evening, Virgie. Thank you so much. Good night. Those are the women I'm talking about. Those are the women I'm mostly interested in. Also, because those are the women who ultimately support the women who have managed to rise up. And those are the women from whom the next leaders will come. Because when we think of leadership, we generally think primarily of those people at the top. Those people at the top. But there is leadership available. There's leadership possible at every single level of our lives. And the thing about leadership is it's not constant. You're leading in this particular instance or event, and then you're following in another one. And sometimes the most powerful way of leading is to follow. We're going to talk about all of those. But let me just talk to you first about this thing that I did today. I think is really, really important. And this has to do with Montserrat, the little island I've been telling you about. My little island is, we have a small population, and like just about every place else, women are not given our due. We're not taken very seriously in many, many instances. And today I felt it necessary to respond really, really strongly to something that came up in Montserrat. It had been rolling around in my mind for a few days because this happened last week, Tuesday, Wednesday, sometime in the middle of last week. And no, like Montserrat, like many other places, in Montserrat, like in many other places, religion and spirituality are important. And in Montserrat, we have something called the Christian Council, which is, because Montserrat is an Anglican country, it's a British country, it's a Christian cultured country. And so the Christian Council, so basically the members, the leaders of the religions, the various religions on Ireland, most of them participate in this, and they sort of guide the government, advise the government, do all kinds of things. And the chairman of the Christian Council last week found it very important, very necessary to take a stand for the Christian Council against same-sex marriage. And of course, people are entitled to their opinions. And for me, as long as, so one of my mottos is do no harm. So I don't care who you disagree with, as long as you do not use it to do harm. You do not do harm to people as a result. But the Christian Council made a point of making a categorical statement against, in opposition to the possibility of same-sex marriages being allowed in Montserrat. And like I said, they can do whatever they want. It struck me, however, that they've never found it necessary to make a categorical statement about statutory rape, about the sexual exploitation of girls, about wife beating, about child abuse. And it's important to think about this because last year in Montserrat, we had a big trial, a big important man who was a lawyer and who at one point actually even was the chief minister of the country, the leader of the country. He's been in government office for many years. He got convicted of sexual exploitation of children. And the Christian Council didn't think it necessary at that point to make any statement against sexual exploitation of minors or statutory rape. But two adults wanting to live together and get married made them jump up. And it reminded me of some years ago when in Montserrat, again, during one of our festivals, I organized a drum jam. And the Christian Council found it very necessary to come out and categorically, unapologetically, they said actually, unapologetically denounce the drum jam. For me, the whole idea of opposition to same-sex marriage has to do not with marriage, but with people's feelings about same-sex relationships. And people put so much energy into them, but not nearly as much energy and effort into keeping women safe, secure, free from harm, protected from harm. So the Christian Council would die to prevent same-sex marriage in Montserrat, but would not stand up to say, adult men leave the young girls alone. And that's one of the things I fight against in Montserrat. And so when I talk about women's leadership, I talk about women having to be courageous. I have to dig deep in myself. I have to dig deep to dig out, to pull up and keep up the courage to do things like this, because I know so many other women don't feel they have the foundation. They feel insecure. And because when you stand up against things like this, so much comes back at you. And I've had it. And that's one of the reasons why I work so hard against these things. Violence against women is a big deal for me. It matters because I am so very aware of the value that women have for the world. Just this morning, I caught by chance a documentary about the game Monopoly. Everybody in this part of the world, in the western part of the world and in many other parts of the world, has played the game Monopoly. It's a popular game. The first time I saw Monopoly, I was 6 or 7 years old. And I heard the story today about the man who made so much money from it, claimed it as his own, but it was a game that a woman had created some time before. And he had found out, and he claimed as his own, made a whole ton of money, did not acknowledge her. And this happens so often. And it happens in small places and big places, in big things and in little things. And so when I get fired up about women and these things come up, I have to express them. And so today I had to express my displeasure and call on the Christian Council in Montserrat to, make as categorical a statement against statutory rape, against violence against women, against the sexual exploitation of young girls, as you feel it necessary to do against same-sex marriage. I enjoy the company of women. I enjoy the way women's minds works. I love men. I love the way men's minds work. And I am crystal clear that what the world needs is these things working together. These differences, these complementary things complementing each other. And we're not going to have that if men continue, because of course the Christian Council is made up mostly of men. We're not going to have this unless we get through these things. And for me, getting through them requires clear, straightforward, upfront talking. People stating their opposition, their position, their thoughts, their feelings, and their research, and being committed to working through. And so with the Women's Leadership Circle, that's what we teach women to do. That's what, ever since I can remember, I think the first time I remember having led a group of girls, I was in primary school, and I started this thing on Friday afternoons where we'd make sugar cake and cheese sticks and stuff and sell them. And we used to make earrings out of the copper wire and beads and sell them. And I had organized a little team to do that. And since then, I found myself in situations, so many different situations, where I see the capacity of the women in the room. And then I also see how they get shut down. I did my master's degree in a women's college in Boston, Simmons University. It's Simmons University now. When I did it was Simmons College. Simmons College was created out of a bequest left by a man named Mr. Simmons, who was a manufacturer in Boston in the 1800s, when there's a lot of immigrant women coming in, working in his shops, making clothes and so on. And he got concerned about their well-being and the violence that he was hearing about in their families, because of course women were sometimes not coming to work and so on. And he knew what was going on in the slums in Boston with these immigrant women who could hardly speak English and so on. And so Mr. Simmons started classes for these women in the factories, so these women could learn English and could begin to empower themselves and understand what was going on around them and learn to navigate this new world that they were in, and not be so much at the mercy of the men in their lives and the men in the communities. And then when he died, he left this money to start the university. And I did an MBA, and the deans of the business school were two women, the two women who were in the first class of Harvard University's MBA program that allowed women in, because of course, women are still not being allowed into places. And so my master's days were reinforcement and reminders and calling upon me and the other women in Simmons to keep this in mind. Always remember this, and whatever work you do outside, Simmons' basic deal is women in positions of leadership, supporting other women, building other women up. And the kind of leadership we're talking about is leadership with empathy, leadership that is thoughtful, that is inclusive, that allows the expression of people, that recognizes all of the capacities of women at every level. So today, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Because when from the Women's Leadership Circle, when we say we're attracting women, we want the boldest, most daring, most courageous women. What I also know is that a lot of women are not very aware of how much courage and how much power they have in them. So the trainings we do at the Women's Leadership Circle helps to pull that out. And then with that, women go out into their communities and carry that energy and that leadership in the small things, but the small things that make us who we are, make our communities what they are, and in the bigger things as they rise. And so we're almost an hour, 15 minutes. What I want to say to you is throughout these next 40, however many days, I've already begun to lose count. Throughout the other 43 days that we're going to be talking, I'm going to be answering questions. So women are asking me things like this. Talk about women's intuition, talk about women's equality, talk about women's equal partnership in the home as well as elsewhere. These are some of the things that women want to talk about because these are the things that are important. And I think one of the things that we get to do as women is begin to have the men in our lives understand that they do better when we do better. Think of it simply, in the most basic terms, a two-family household where the woman is working, the man is working, where both people are working. How much more financial resources come into that family? And how much better the conversations that people can have. So how much better the relationships can be, and how much more you have to impart to your children when you have a life outside. Remember years ago, one of the last things I'm going to say, years ago, a cousin of mine had 2 young children, and I was in college at the time actually, and she was raising these 2 children. She was a stay-at-home mom, and one day she said to me, Shirley, really, all I talk to you about is these kids, right? And sometimes I listen to her do the baby talk with me because all of her time was being spent with babies. There's nothing wrong with that. But what she needed, in addition to that, was the environment outside that kept her brain working, because the babies don't need her to be a baby with them. They need their parents to be adults. And it's as simple as psychologists will tell you that we need to teach children what they need to know at least 5 years before they need to know it. So if the mom is locked in at home with the child and is just playing games and doing SpongeBob and Baby Shark all day, it's going to limit the development of the child. Studies also show that. So part of the leadership that women get to carry out in the home is bringing up their children, helping their children really, really develop, prepare for adult world. That's a leadership skill all by itself, which requires connection and relationship with other people, other women, and other people in general, the outside world. So tomorrow we're going to talk some more. I'll probably begin to answer some of the questions specifically that women ask tomorrow. I'll begin working on those because there's a long list. There's a long list. I thank you all so very much for sending these questions. I'm amazed. And thank you to everybody who watched yesterday's program. Watched yesterday's live. Tomorrow, I think we're going to do a little bit earlier because I have an engagement around about this time at 6 o'clock tomorrow. So we're going to do at 4 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow. 4 o'clock Pacific time. But also bear in mind that we are streaming a very see when I talk about women supporting one another. Yesterday I said I had not yet figured out how to set up the live stream so you could do from all my social media accounts. And I got a WhatsApp this morning. Here's what you do, Shirley. Thank you, Candy. Thank you so very much. Here's what you do. And I did it. It's done. So I'm streaming right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So tomorrow I start answering questions. Please keep sending me questions. Share this with your friends. Let's make this really, really worthwhile and advancing. Tomorrow also, and as we go, I'll tell you some more about Women's Leadership Circle and really, really want to go with this. If you go online at shirleyosborn.com, you'll see where my brain is. You'll see what is working in my brain and where I'm pulling together all these years of working with women and with men in industry, in politics, in government, two different things, in the social environment, because I come from the Caribbean. I love carnival. I love to be out. I'm a very social person. I'm also very much an introvert. And one day we're going to talk about that because My friends, in fact, when I did my MBA, one of the things that we talked about one day, we did a one of those personality assessments, and my classmates were astounded to find out that I I fell in the INTJ category, introverted. They couldn't believe it, but it really is true. And we're going to talk about that, the importance of also being respectful and honoring your private, your personal self, and taking time and being comfortable with being alone, and also making time for the inside part of you. We're going to talk about all of those things as we go along. Thank you all so very much for checking in today. Thank you a million times, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take good care, everyone.